From unsolved mysteries to unexplained phenomena, from comedy gold to relationship fails, Amazon Music's got the most ad-free top podcasts, included with Prime. Because the only thing that should interrupt your listening is, well, nothing. Download the Amazon Music app today.
What's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. Glenn, how are you?
I'm really good.
So I usually try to prepare these episodes and we batch create them. We'll record several at a time. And so this week when I was creating our content, I was thinking, actually, I got very lucky because the content just literally came to me for our recording batches this week. And I was thinking about our episode that we did back on September the 10th, where we interviewed Ryan Woodruff. And I was thinking about all of the things that he said as it pertained to his service in the military and the difficulty in the transition back into civilian life. And I was relating that to a lot of people who are first responders who have this sort of comfort in the chaos and who express to me all the time why their peace feels so unfamiliar, even if they're retired or they're at the end of their shift for the day. And I thought that we can kind of open up the dialogue about that.
I think it's really something that, especially coming from the law enforcement background or going into that chaos, is you start finding that support and that brotherhood or sisterhood, whatever it may be. And that's what you lean on, kind of talking about, like we did in a previous episode, of having your religion based off of your being in law enforcement, being in the military, and you start feeding into that more and more to where that is all you know, and you don't know any difference than that chaos.
For a lot of people who basically thrive in adrenaline-filled environments, I think that boredom, silence, calm, it actually feels super unsafe. And there's a lot of logical reasons as to why. And so I thought that we can kind of break things down a little bit, in particular why chaos feels like home when you are at home. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have years of conditioning in high-stake environments, and this literally rewires your brain. Your adrenaline actually becomes addictive, and it can make calm feel like danger.
You know, it's something I thought about this recently. It's kind of crazy how, like, being in law enforcement, going and you chasing those adrenaline jumps, chasing that dynamic with being out in the field and going to hot call after hot call, and like I can go to a critical incident to where, starting out my career, I would have those huge adrenaline spikes, and you would go home by the end of the day and you're just exhausted because you have those highs and lows, and you never have that kind of a consistent basis with it. Now I look at it like I go to these incidents and I don't even recognize an adrenaline spike or anything. And it's because I've gone to so much of that, and you're not getting that same adrenaline spike on each incident.
Yeah, something crazy that I have incorporated into my life as somebody who doesn't train as a law enforcement officer is when it comes to any of those instances where I have that spike take place. And I'm talking more on more critical incidents. So let's say that I pay witness to something super tragic, for example, and I notice that my fight or flight is kicking in. I will pause literally with intention. And this is something that takes a lot of practice because, number one, you have to remember to do it. I will ask myself, wait a second, why am I feeling like I'm them right now? And then I remind myself, number one, this isn't my story. This has nothing to do with me, right? And it could be even something as simple as watching somebody pass out in the grocery store and hit their head on the floor, right? That causes a physiological reaction. And so having that ability and the discipline to be able to kind of go through your body and your mind, and then to kind of analyze what's going on, and then to practice the rhythmic motion of, whatever you do, box breathing, grounding, to be able to calm all of that down. I think that having that is incredibly important because I'm thinking about you, Clint, and I've never seen you pull somebody over. I've never seen you, well, I have seen you respond to calls. But I'm thinking about just how I know your persona to be. And I can picture other officers, especially the younger ones who don't have a lot of experience. And your reaction has a significant amount to do with your experience and also your ability to make sure that you can stay grounded. And also you are more of an empath. And so what I've seen in your behavior is the ability to be able to bring the temperature down around you.
Yeah, being able to recognize that for yourself as an individual and being able to go to an instance to where you have everyone amped up, screaming, yelling at you. If you go in amped up, screaming, yelling at them, you're just going to make that situation worse. Being able to go into an incident and be like, well, hey, why is everyone yelling right now? and you start creating that dynamic, because I think one, it helps officer safety wise. It's really big. And if you go into it with a clear mind, knowing how you're going to address the issue, knowing how you're going to respond to all these different variables, it starts eliminating that tunnel vision and to only focusing on what's right in front of you instead of all the factors going on around you.
When I'm FaceTiming with one of my friends, he is a reserve officer. Something that I notice about him, and I notice it because it's very much ingrained in myself. When he's sitting in his vehicle, he is scanning like crazy, like so much so that sometimes I have to like, hey, I'm here. And I get that because I do exactly the same thing. Like when you and I sometimes we'll have our little date days and we'll drive out somewhere and eat food in the vehicle. And I'm constantly just like mirror, back, front, like over and over again. And it's exhausting. And when you live in this state of hypervigilance all of the time, it can be detrimental because it truly can damage your physical and your emotional health.
Yeah, being able to find that balance, being able to recognize different avenues and being aware of your surroundings, and it's having that knowledge and know-how, being able to watch everything that's going on around you, but not being so invested into it where you can't even take a moment to pause. It's important to find that balance.
And the reason it's so vital to put the work in is because when you're trying to have that downtime, if you haven't put in the work, you're not going to have the physical and mental tools to be able to have nights to where you don't experience irritability. You don't have mistrust randomly showing up. You don't have that restlessness existing when you're trying to kick back.
Yeah, being able to create that sense of calm in chaotic situations, like really it shouldn't turn into where, like Ashley said, was having this, when you're at a moment of peace, you shouldn't be uncomfortable. You shouldn't be settled or in an uncomfortable position to where you're worried about, well, this is wrong. You should be even more calm than you normally would be in a chaotic situation.
And I'm going to point you, Clint, and myself out, and I want to share examples because there are ways to be able to recognize signs of a nervous system overload. So if you're having trouble sleeping and you need this constant stimulation, so like the television on in order to be able to fall asleep, for example, there have been times where you have fallen asleep and I've turned the TV off and it wakes you up and keeps you up. So that's actually a sign of a nervous system overload. And something that I struggle with is that I have a very difficult time sitting still or relaxing without guilt. Even if I already planned it out in my head, my reward is like, when I'm done with this, then I can finally be done for the night. But then I have that guilt kick in and then I'm like, okay, well, let me just check one more thing. And that one more thing leads to literally like 4 or 5 more hours. And that's something I have been trying so hard to work on. We're going to be going on almost 2 years now that, I have so much work right now, and it's my fault, right? Like I own my own business. I'm doing it all to myself. Some of it is because I like it. Some of it's because I'm definitely chasing that dollar right now. When you're on a high, I think financially, you have a tendency, be it good or bad, to kind of lean into things. And I like that. It's like a reward when you see the fruits of your labor in that way. And it's quite different too when you work for yourself, and it's not like a 9 to 5 where you have this like consistent check coming in. I want that check to be bigger and bigger and bigger every day, not every biweekly. And so I think that it's important to know that is actually your body responding to you when you don't have the ability to just sit still and relax without feeling guilty.
Yeah, being able to recognize that, you start implementing change. You start correcting it if you want to, and it's finding a balance. All in all, when it comes to having that peace in a normal incidence.
Yeah, and I haven't been feeling good this past week. And something I had said to you that I did, like we can trick ourselves into this too. So something that I said to you was, you were at work, we were on the phone, and I literally took my laptop from downstairs on my lap, and I went upstairs and I placed it upstairs because I'm not going to walk back up and down the stairs to be able to come up here and work. It's like 90 degrees. We don't, it's 90. We have 2 separate air conditioners. So I, on purpose, took my laptop and put it upstairs so that I wouldn't be tempted to get on it again.
Yeah, finding little tips or little tricks like that is something that can be hugely beneficial to create that dynamic so you don't keep just jumping back into it.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.